Picture this. It is a moonless night in the autumn of 1529, and an elite Ottoman janissary is standing watch outside the walls of Vienna. Suddenly, a low, unnatural growl echoes from the clouds. It sounds far heavier than a thunderstorm, but there is no rain falling on the encampment. Before a single order can be shouted, the sky tears open. A continuous, blinding stream of fire rains down from the heavens, shattering the vanguard into dust. To understand how this battle plays out, we have to establish the absolute rules of the engagement. The gunship and its crew are entirely alone. There are no modern reinforcements coming to save them, and no GPS satellites to guide their strikes. That brings us to the ultimate constraint. There is zero modern resupply. Whatever aviation fuel and ammunition they have stockpiled inside Vienna's walls is their entire war chest. Every bullet spent is a bullet gone from the universe. We're looking at an ancient army of flesh and blood, trying to outlast a futuristic machine of finite wrath. This tactical map illustrates the crew's opening move, deterrence. By banking into its infamous circle of death, the gunship drops targeted warning shots from its 40mm and 105mm cannons just outside the massive Ottoman encampment to conserve ammunition. The physical impact is catastrophic. The sheer force of the shockwaves knocks thousands of men off their feet, shattering the morale of the front lines. To the soldiers on the ground, this aircraft makes no logical sense. They are looking up at what they believe is a literal dragon spitting the wrath of God. Technological supremacy easily breaks an army on night one, but terror alone cannot hold territory indefinitely against a thinking enemy. Down in the mud, Suleiman's commanders notice a pattern. The metal dragon only hunts at night and eventually has to return to Earth to rest. Look at these gauges tracking the aircraft's vital resources. The AC-130 is a maintenance vampire. For every hour that plane stays in the air, it burns through massive amounts of aviation fuel and rapidly degrades the lifespan of its gun barrels. This overhead diagram shows the Ottoman response. Suleiman's tacticians quickly abandon large, easy targets. Instead, they order their massive formations to break apart, dispersing the men into hundreds of smaller, isolated units across the siege lines. They start digging incredibly deep siege trenches, abandoning daytime maneuvers entirely to move exclusively under the cover of darkness. Beyond the trenches, the engineers construct massive decoy camps, filling thousands of empty tents specifically to bait the gunship. The decoys work. The AC-130 crew fires on these ghost camps, wasting their unreplenishable smart munitions on empty dirt. The Ottomans understand they do not need to physically shoot the plane out of the sky. They simply have to starve its supply chain, shifting an unwinnable fight into a war of attrition. Weeks drag on. Eventually, the AC-130's ledger of available rounds drops to zero, and the airframe itself begins breaking down under the strain of continuous operations. On the ground, the Ottoman army is heavily battered and bleeding out. The surviving soldiers absolutely refuse to march forward into the invisible fire. Suleiman weighs his options. Realizing that capturing Vienna is no longer worth the total destruction of his elite forces, he raises a white flag. Logistics win wars. The siege ends without a glorious Hollywood explosion. Instead, we get a desperate mutual standoff, where both sides simply exhaust their resources. As the janissary retreats, he leaves behind a city that has been permanently altered. The immediate threat of the dragon's fire has faded, but a much more enduring influence remains within the city walls. The stranded AC-130 crew are now permanent residents of 1529. While they can no longer fly their aircraft, they possess the technical literacy and engineering principles of the 21st century. The transition isn't immediate. They face language barriers and a lack of refined materials. They begin with the basics, applying modern metallurgy to local ironworks to produce steel with a purity and strength previously unseen in 16th century Europe. This knowledge slowly radiates outward. Over the course of decades, their understanding of thermodynamics allows local craftsmen to build functional, coal-fired prototypes that replicate the mechanical advantages of the crew's modern blueprints. The janissaries saw a single battle end. But by grounding the crew in Vienna, the siege ensured that the city would be building steam engines and implementing modern medicine, while the rest of the world was still decades away from the printing press.